Some people hear the words board service and think of nothing but meetings. Some hear it and think, this is where I can change lives. In this episode, I sit down with Shannon Wiesedeppe, president of the Roses Board of Directors, who first heard about us through the Junior League of Houston. She brought both her leadership and her own deep family history of breast cancer to our mission. Shannon talks about what it's really like to steer the Rose through hurricanes, COVID, anonymous $1 million gifts, and a CEO transition after 40 years. All the while insisting that uninsured women receive the same care, the same navigation, and the same compassion as anyone else. If Shannon's story makes you think of a woman you love, share this episode with your family and friends, and consider making a donation so that another woman gets the care she needs. Just go to therose.org. Let's talk about your breast. A different kind of podcast presented to you by The Rose, a breast center of excellence and a Texas treasure. You're going to hear frank discussions about tough topics, and you're going to learn why knowing about your breast could save your life. Shannon, thank you so much for being with us today. It's just a delight to finally get you here.
Happy to be here.
You know, you were recruited to our board, and right now you're our board chair. But you came on in 2018. So how did you ever, who recruited you? How did you get here? That kind of stuff.
Well, I was asked to go to lunch with Pam Lovett and Peggy Rowe, and they asked me, what I know about the Rose, and I told them that, I knew about it from the Junior League. We had done a community assistance grant, and so I had reviewed, those materials and seen the presentation, and you had done some speaking at the league, and so I was familiar with it. And they talked about, the opportunity to sit on the board, and I've known both of them through the league for a long time, and so between my knowledge, surface as it was of the Rose, my knowledge of them and the organizations that they've been a part of, it just sounded like a really attractive opportunity. And I always look for opportunities to be engaged in the community, so that seemed like a really good fit.
So just for our listeners, the Junior League of Houston.
Yes.
You've been a member of it for how long? Well, we don't have to go there, but
long
very
time.
long time.
Long
yes.
time, 20 plus years.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and you've held lots of different positions within the league,
Yes.
primarily volunteer type.
Yeah, outside the league, in community placements, that's a requirement. Every year you have a new placement, and then also some administrative roles inside the league, either as a chairman or working on things that were more internal operations of the league. And then ultimately, I served as the president. We serve 1-year terms of everything, and so I served a term as the president.
It seems like the first time that I had a chance to talk with you, that you had some family history or very much knowledge about breast cancer.
I do. Both of my grandmothers had breast cancer. My mother had breast cancer, and I have several friends who had been diagnosed, and in the recent past lost one of those friends that I knew, that I've known since high school.
That's
Certainly
a strong
have a connection.
family history.
Oh, yes.
Yes, yes. So I'm sure you're on top of
I mean, I
everything.
could not be more on top of it. If there's something out there, I'm doing it.
Oh, okay. I just remember very distinctly you saying, it's just something that's been a part of my life for a long, long time. And I thought, ooh, that's kind of a heavy lift.
Yeah. I mean, everyone has something, right?
But,
and, you just plan as best you can for it. And hopefully if that were to visit itself on me, that I've found out early and can, have the best opportunity.
Which is, yes, the best. So let's talk about your role as a member of the board. You've seen the Rose go through hurricanes, go from portable mammo machines to our big old coaches. Yep. You've seen COVID. That was a really tough time. Mm-hmm. And you've seen, anonymous donors walk in with lots of money to give. So what memory do you hold? What comes to mind when you think about the time you've been with us?
I mean, certainly in that number of years, a lot of things have happened, and they've happened for all nonprofits,
Oh, yes.
right? And so people in the space, but over time, all of those things have not happened to an organization. That's a lot of big ticket items to happen, and really, some nonprofits didn't make it through COVID or through some other circumstances. I think the biggest thing is the way that we have been able to be creative and be intentional with the decisions that we've made as a board, and the staff has been incredibly resilient. The grit that they have is, unmatched. They have to make it work, and so they do whatever it takes, and they really come up with some inventive ways of getting things done, reaching out to people, and just they know that people need our services, and so they're going to do whatever it takes to patch it up and make that happen to the degree that we are able. So that's really impressed me, that being able to watch that from a board perspective and try to support that the best that we can.
And this board has been so supportive. I mean, it has flown with us through all these different things. And when you're in the nonprofit place, it is so important that you have a board that understands, or at least is well-versed enough to appreciate that nonprofits do have to function a little bit differently. It's just we're not making widgets. I mean, we're not selling things. So
That's right.
It makes it...
It's not a linear
situation.
No,
it's not. It's not. You were kind of fast-tracked into this last role.
I was.
I was thinking about the different positions you had, and I know you were chair of the Fund Development Committee, and I kept thinking, what else was she doing, and how did she get to chair? But
great question.
But honestly, I just want to tell you how much we appreciate you stepping up, because we had a member that was, going to be chair and just couldn't make that commitment that year.
Right.
And so having you step up and say, okay, I can do this.
Well, you can thank Pam Lovett again for that. I tend to find myself throughout my career doing trials by fire. And so that's not necessarily scary to me. I walk into many situations where I don't have any background or...
Why would you do that?
I don't...
I know. I've heard you talk about these different positions you've had.
I don't know that I don't seek it, I don't think. It finds me. And not that I wasn't paying attention on this board or that I haven't been on other boards, and I've led other boards, but each one is very different. And my personality is one where I like to study, and so certainly, all things being equal, I would love the opportunity to watch where I was going, to have that lead time. But that doesn't always present itself. And so, I didn't really have any goals for that role. I wasn't planning to be in that role necessarily. And so you just jump in and make it happen. And this board is very supportive and very engaged. And so it's made it very easy. So I hope that I've been able to continue to allow people to have a voice on the board and feel like we are a cohesive group, and that I've been a good partner from a CEO perspective. I feel like we are hopefully better than we were before, at least going through our strategic plan. We had the ever-changing healthcare landscape, the departure of our CEO, and a search for the replacement.
Boy, I'll never forget that day I told you it was time, and you go, no, you can wait until my term is up. And I said, I
did.
think I can. So, but that is a big, big responsibility. And I know one of the things that always shocks people is the number one job of a board, of a nonprofit, or I guess any business, is the placement of that CEO. It is the evaluation and placement and making sure that leadership is right for the company. So this wasn't an easy job, having someone who's been with an organization so long and having to replace that. It's just but it is a good time.
Yeah, it's a unique opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, it's daunting, but you don't necessarily get to have that experience as a member of a board, particularly from a replacement of a long-term co-founding person. That comes with all kinds of, that's the way it's been for 40 years, and having the change just of that, having that presence being different. That's been something that I think all of us on the board are learning things about. Even people who've been through a CEO search, again, they're all different. And the person that you're trying to find is different for every board that you're on and in the time that you're in. I think it's fortuitous for us that we are doing that at a time that we just have put the strategic plan together, so we have a little more of an idea of where we want to go and how we want to get there and who might be that person to take us there. So I guess.
Was there any particular area of the strategic plan that really excited you?
I think probably expanding partnerships and seeing how we can provide our services along with something that either another company or organization can't provide, or maybe they're not doing it the way that we do it and they want to go in a different direction and have us help them out. I think that's a great way for us to be collaborative with people in the healthcare industry and other organizations.
And it's really unusual.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people talk about collaborations, but they don't always work. And especially when there's money involved. I can support you all day long with a letter of support, but when it comes to here's how we're going to use this funding,
right,
then it becomes a very different animal. So it has been kind of exciting to see these things come together. And you know how long they take.
Oh, yes.
That will be one thing I will be glad not to have an idea and not see it happen for 3 years. Yeah. I mean, it is, nonprofits just take longer.
You have to be patient. And just stay the course. It's easy to just stop and say, oh, that's going to take too long. Let's just not even bother. But I mean, eventually it will happen. So you have to start somewhere. And
the other part I think is so interesting, and I guess this is in any business, but an idea you may have had 7 years ago, now it wasn't time then. Now it is.
Right.
And you go, but didn't we try that, or didn't we think about that, but that's the other part of this leadership role, decision making. You can't say, oh, it didn't work.
Right.
Because you never know when it will.
Yeah, you can't discount it. You have to bring it back up, because one time it might be a good fit. It's all about time, place, people. Yes. Sometimes it's the right mix, and you just have to keep trying.
One of the things that has been fun about working with you is that you have this incredible sense of humor. Have you always been that way? Were you a cut up in school? Were you?
No. I mean, my husband will laugh listening to this, because I always tell him that I used to be funny. It's like in high school, it's funny. And he was like, okay. No, I mean, my family is very sarcastic. And so I think that's just been the way I always have been. I don't try to, find the joke or make the joke, but I, can make light of things when necessary. But yeah, my family, my siblings and I, we cut up a lot. And also my children are very sarcastic. I think they're hilarious. So yeah, I mean, I think that's just part of my personality. I don't think people say, "Oh my gosh, she is the funniest person that I've ever met." But
I wouldn't go that far, but
exactly.
But it's like you're so serious sometimes, and then you come out with some of these things, and I'm going, "What did she just say?" So I get it. The families that tease each other, the families that can do that. To me, it's just healthier,
right?
And I've been around different groups that are so serious or so, it has to be this way. Yeah. And it just doesn't make work very fun.
I mean, you have to read the room.
Yes. Yes.
And pretty quickly if what you're delivering is not landing. Right.
Shannon, you talked earlier about you kind of find yourself going into things that you don't really know anything about. You've had a very interesting career history. I mean, you were, now I want to get this term right, the Assistant Attorney General?
And Assistant Attorney General. Yeah, there's several of us, yeah.
But that's a pretty impressive role. I mean, I don't care if it's Ann. When I first read that one, for the whole state? I mean, but you were in a position of a lot of authority and decision making.
I mean, I was in the Child Support Enforcement Division, so very high volume, 100 case dockets several days a week that you had to prepare, be ready to go. Each, yes, the underlying subject matter is the same across all of the cases, but everyone's story is somewhat different.
Was that a job you envisioned yourself having when you were going through law school? And
not necessarily, but I've always been drawn to, children, families, things like that. Probably not in this arena because it's not as fun or happy as others. But, the highs of that is if you get a order in place, you know that you've got some, child support, medical support. You've got some things to support that family put in place. But the downside is then you see an enforcement action because it didn't get fulfilled. Right. And, you learn a lot of things in that job, not just from a legal perspective, but, customer service, because you're managing a lot of different personalities, a lot of different people. You're having to do it in a high stress situation for them and fast paced because all of those cases, and our office wasn't the only one there. So we had a 100 case docket and 4 other offices had 100 case dockets. So there's not a lot of time to spend with someone, and there's not a lot of time in front of the judge if you have to end up having a hearing. So you have to be very efficient, and you have to be mindful that, while this is your job and you're moving to the next case, this is their life. And so you have to be cognizant of that and give that the deference, that it deserves.
And then from there, you went to doing what?
From there, I stayed home with my kids and did a little bit of contract work for the company that I currently work for, and doing, real estate items, leases and things that I had never done before. But I had a friend who was working there, and they, were looking for people to be contractors, and I thought, I'll give that a shot, try that out. So did that for about, 15 years or so. And all that while I was volunteering at the junior league. So that was kind of
your other job. Yes.
And then after that, took a full-time position with my current employer, doing that same thing that I was doing. And then I shifted into the training division, which is where I currently am now. I again go into different business units, not knowing how they do their job or what platform they're using. I have to kind of learn that and then put together the materials to train employees to do their day-to-day job. So every couple of weeks or so, I'm learning something else from a different business unit. So, it keeps you guessing.
Yeah, but that's novel. That's a lot of different things happening, not the same old job every day. So I think that would fit your personality for sure. Yes.
Well, it is now my personality, I guess, because it is ingrained in me to be shifting all the time. So change management, when people talk about, change is painful and things like that, it absolutely is. But it does not shake me or scare me because I live in that all the time.
Right. So go back to what you were saying about when you were Assistant Attorney General and how that touched so many lives. Have you seen similarities in some of the stories that you've heard here at the Rose? How lives can be touched, but people can find themselves in situations they never dreamed that they would ever be in.
Sure, and that just, there are things that just make everything harder. Mm-hmm. So, if you're lacking the funds or the support to do the basic things for your children, or, for example, health insurance, you don't have health insurance and you need to have that put in place, have someone providing that for you, or have some other mechanism to have health care, you don't have time to take care of a lot of other things. These are the basics. You're trying to have a place to live and to pay your bills and get food. And so having to deal with all those other things like just your health or taking care of your job. And, you have to take time off to go to court to take care of this.
Yes.
I think there's a parallel to what we're doing here because sometimes it is a monetary thing or it's an insurance thing and you have to take time off work. So you're like, maybe I just won't do that. It's stressful and there's not a lot of necessarily other support. Like we, at the AGs office, we tried to then connect people with job finding and things like sort of some support things where we could, but you can't be everything to everyone, just like for the Rose. Sure, we would love probably to bring everything we could find to bear to get someone where they need to be, but that's not our mission, and that's not what we do best necessarily. And so there are other people that can do that better. But certainly there are parallels. There's just the access to be able to, at the AG's office, people came to us or were referred to us to handle their case because they didn't have an alternative. Similar to the Rose, we take care of, a segment of our client is someone who might not otherwise have been able to access us. So sure.
Did anything surprise you in the breast cancer world and throughout your almost 10 years here?
I think, when I first came, I didn't have a real understanding of the sort of the back end, the insurance and reimbursement and how the government funding, like that piece. And I think that was really interesting to understand just the impact of having or not having that from a provider perspective and just what a difference it makes, reimbursement levels from different insurance providers and how that makes an impact and all that goes into that. Because a little bit if you pay attention at all, if you have insurance, to whether when you get your explanation of benefits, did that go? But most people don't look at that or don't understand that. So you might have a little bit of understanding if you actually looked at those things of your own, but you still don't, how that affects others and the big picture. I don't think that I understood that, and I think most people don't. So I think that was really eye-opening to me. And just learning either through our luncheon speakers or our program reports, all the technology and the change in treatment and all of those things that I just didn't have the occasion or the opportunity to know those things. And so I think learning things all the time here, stuff is changing so quickly with what is available, the modalities and medications and all of that, that I feel like sort of like having a insider look at some things. And I think that's been really interesting for me personally, just to know what's coming up and just to share that information with other people.
And, we still spend a lot of time just trying to fight the myths that are out there and doing education at a very basic level.
Right.
Because it's like you said, if you're not in this world, you're not going to think much about it. You're not even going to know.
No.
And certainly when you suddenly wake up one day and have a lump in your breast, then all things change. And there's just so much misunderstandings around women's health to begin with. Breast world, it's very much.
And that's across the board. It doesn't matter. You have insurance, you don't have insurance.
That's true.
You hear all the time people are, I'm too young, or that doesn't happen, or that's the kind of thing that it reaches everybody. It doesn't matter.
Right.
The myths, the education, whatever it is, we got to get that out to everybody.
We do. If I remember right, you were the one that in our strategic plan we have 6 areas of focus. But the one that I remember you talking the most about was awareness. And not just of the Rose as being a provider, but also that understanding that there is a resource here and there is so much more to understand and learn about breast cancer, period, and the importance of prevention, the importance of early detection. Those things just really, it seems to me after 40 years we would know some of that. But we don't.
No.
I think you reminded me of this. You have 40-year-olds who are coming up all the time that have never even thought of this. And I remember saying, yeah, sure, no, I know, but you'd think some of this would have just, they would have gotten it already.
No, and you have to find different ways to reach people. And so, marketing is not just about donations and that type of thing. It's about just sharing this resource or the education, like here's a place to go. And maybe if a friend hears it from you, then they might look at that. Or if someone sees you speaking somewhere, they'd look at it where otherwise they might not. So,
Right.
It's about relationships. It's about just being, available to people and just share it. You don't know who that's going to affect. You don't know who that then they're going to tell. So I'm always about telling people about what we do, where they can get the resource. They don't have to do anything in return.
Right.
Except maybe go get a mammogram. But just share the information, because then somebody at least can say, oh my gosh, yes, I did hear about that. I had my friend who had passed away from breast cancer. Her husband texted me one day and said, we're looking, I have a friend who's looking for someone to, donate to. And I was doing some research and I saw your name associated with the rose. And I said, that's the end of my search. So you never know what that impact is going to be. He knows me, she knew me. And just because of that relationship, they trust me. And so that's all that he needed to know. And now he will pass that information on to other people.
Being on a board has unique responsibilities. And that's another thing that I've often heard from board members, like, I didn't know I had to do this, or I didn't know that was expected. And it's just common sense, but some of it we have to be sure there's a good understanding of that,
Right.
among the members. And I think that's the other thing that, as chair, you have really insisted on. People know what we do and why it's important. But in your mind, why is the rose important to this community?
I mean, we hear stories all the time at the board meetings, and they're available. The Rose shares them of people that, but for us, they might be in a very different circumstance. And so, some might say, well, they could have gone somewhere else, maybe, or, maybe, but the stories seem to bear out that they heard about us or were told about us. They came to see us, and then, whatever unfolded from there. So not everyone does what we do. And so I don't think that they could have.
No, and that's it. It's about access. It's about, you have to have that first mammogram. You have to have that first diagnosis of, do you have something wrong or is there nothing there? It's not a easy area to figure out.
Right.
If you're a layperson. And even if you're not, but
that's right.
When you don't have access. And one of the things that I think, and I've heard this from other board members, our mobile program, our mobile mammography programs, is actually bringing that service to the women where they are.
Right.
And, we are busy. We're not going to take that half day off, like you were saying in the beginning, or you can't. And so isn't that sad, though, at one level? And yet at what we've been able to do with that has been very rewarding for me.
Oh, yes.
And so at least there's one change in there we made.
Hey, among many.
Yeah.
It's just you want to make it easy for people to get what they need. There are so many barriers to getting to things that you need that if we can remove some of those, then someone could actually come in and avail themselves of our services.
Right. So what is the most important thing that you think that we need to be telling women right now? And I mean right now. We often say, oh, we need to talk more about early detection, but, there's a lot of stress going on. And I find that there needs to be perhaps a new role that we play in the world of women. So if you had one message to send to all the women that we might see in any year, what would it be?
I think I might just say that, we're here to help you through whatever comes of coming to see us, right? So the world is stressful. you may not feel like you have time to take care of yourself, but this is, something that you can do, and it might be scary, or, this is one more thing you don't want to have to deal with. But there is an organization here that can make that easier for you, whether it is through scheduling your mammogram or navigating you through any negative result from that. So, we can make something that is a stressful situation hopefully less stressful. So we are a partner in taking something that is very, daunting for someone or not at top of mind, and making it as easy as we can for you. I think we work really hard to help people through the whole process.
Right.
Either just the ease of scheduling and the experience of that, so that you will want to return and do that again. Or if something further testing needs to be done, that we try to minimize you having to figure out, oh, where am I going to go? How am I going to do that? What does that mean? I think we do a very good job of streamlining that for somebody to try to make it as low stress as possible, given what the scenario is.
Right. And that's whether you have insurance or not.
That's right. Same care, same everything.
Yeah. Well, that's a good message. Usually I hear people say, oh, go take care of yourself, or, but that's kind of a different way of thinking about it.
Yeah. I mean, everyone has a different way of dealing with stress, and I probably am not the person to tell you how to do that
but just that ease, that convenience, that we're going to be here for
exhaling,
you.
We can help you get through that, because some people don't have that support system and they need somebody. And if you maybe go other places, you go have your appointment and then
that's it.
See you next year. So I think we have a different style.
We did. Well, again, thank you so much for being the chair through one of the most complicated times in the Rose's history. Okay, yeah, I admit this has not been the easiest last year, but you've handled it all with grace.
That's very nice. It's always learning. Everyone, there's always an opportunity.
Oh, yes, and you've learned a lot this past year. So thank you for serving on our board, for leading us, and for all the things that you've helped us understand about marketing, fundraising, the things that we have to keep going. So,
well, thank you. You've been a great partner.
Thank you for joining us today on Let's Talk About Your Breasts. This podcast is produced by Speak Podcasting and brought to you by The Rose. Visit therose.org to learn more about our organization. Subscribe to our podcast, share episodes with friends, and join the conversation on social media using hashtag Let's Talk About Your Breasts. We welcome your feedback and suggestions. Consider supporting The Rose. Your gift can make the difference to a person in need. And remember, self-care is not selfish. It's essential.